So now that we're able to get the path from the selected asset when we try to create our new color palette, let's actually look into how to save the scriptable object itself. In our scripts folder, let's create a new C# script, and we're going to call this custom asset utility. Let's open this up in MonoDevelop. And since this is going to be a utility class, we won't need to extend MonoBehavior, and we can delete the start and update methods. Let's also include the Unity editor namespace. So now let's create a public static method that we can use to create our asset. Here, we'll type out public static. Our type is going to be a generic, so we're going to use T to represent the return value. We're going to call our method createAsset, and we're also going to pass in T as the generic type as well. Then we'll need the path where to create our file, so this is going to be a string called path, and we want to let the method know that T represents a scriptable object. Now let's close out the method. Inside of it, we'll need a variable to represent the asset we're going to create. We can type it to T and set it to null for now. Then we're going to want to create an instance of the actual class that we're passing in. Now, in order to create an instance of a scriptable object, we're going to need to use the static method createInstance that's part of the scriptable object class. Here, we'll set the asset to equal scriptable object and call createInstance. Then pass in T as the type, and now we'll have an instance of our scriptable object. Next, we're going to want to generate out a unique path name so that if we save multiple versions of this, they don't override each other. In order to do that, let's create another variable called newPath, and we're going to use a method on the asset database called generateUniqueAssetPath to create that path for us. Now, we'll need to tell the asset database to create the asset. Here we'll supply the instance of the asset and the asset path. Then we'll need to tell the asset database to save all the assets that have been created. And finally, let's return the instance of the asset that we created so we can use it in other parts of our code. When we're done, hit save, and let's go into the color palette and create our new asset. Right after we've created our selection path, let's create a new variable for the palette, and we'll use our custom asset utility class to create the asset. In this case, we'll pass in color palette as the class type, and we'll use the selection path that we generated earlier. Now let's save this and go back into Unity. Inside of our artwork folder, we can right-click on the person sprite sheet, go to the Create menu, and select Color Palette. And now you'll see our new color palette has been created. If we select this, here, we'll be able to modify any of the public properties of our class, just like we would on any of our game object instances. In the next video, we'll start adding out the properties to allow us to configure the color palette.